Hi, I'm Irene. I worked 2 jobs, waitressing double shifts, just to help my sister stay afloat. But then she showed up at my job, called me a lowlife in front of a packed restaurant, and walked out like I was nothing. I thought that would be the worst part. But what came after? The lies? The guilt? The way my own parents turned their backs? What do you do when the people you love treat you like a utility instead of a daughter? Some people carry family in their wallets, pictures, phone numbers, emergency contacts. I carry mine in my spine, in the slouch of my shoulders, in the exhaustion that never really lifts. It was around 6:30 in the evening, and I was wiping down the counter at the restaurant before the dinner rush picked up. The overhead lights buzzed softly, and a faint scent of marinara clung to the air. I'd been working double shifts all week, covering for a coworker who quit without notice. My manager barely looked at me anymore, just tossed a dish rag my way and mumbled, "You're a lifesaver." I'm not. I'm just a woman in her 30s who learned too early that when people around you start drowning, they'll grab whatever's closest to stay afloat. And that was always me. Growing up in Sacramento, my parents raised us in a house that looked calm from the outside. White shutters, trimmed lawn. But inside, it was all about who shined the brightest. My sister Calla always had a spotlight. Mom said she had star quality, whatever that meant. Dad called her our little diamond. I was just the steady one, the helper, the problem solver. At first, I wore it like a badge. Who wouldn't want to be dependable? But over time, I noticed something. Calla never had to lift a finger unless it was to point at someone else to do it for her. Usually, that someone was me. A few weeks ago, Mom called during my short break between shifts. I was sitting in my car, engine off, sandwich untouched. "Honey," she started, soft like she always did when she wanted something. "Your sister's had a rough patch lately. I was wondering, could you help cover her rent just until she gets back on her feet?" I didn't answer right away. I stared at the crack in my windshield, the one I couldn't afford to fix. "She's your sister," Mom added, as if that settled everything. "Family helps each other." Dad was silent on the line, but I knew he was there, probably nodding. Always the quiet partner in this twisted little arrangement. They didn't have to say more. They never said more. The burden just rolled downhill, and I caught it, again. I said yes. I always say yes. The next day, I checked my credit card statement out of habit, something in me uneasy. That's when I saw it. 2 separate charges totaling nearly $900. One at a boutique downtown, the other for some online cosmetic brand I'd never heard of. My chest tightened. I knew. Somehow, I just knew. When I called Calla, she answered like nothing was wrong. "Oh, that? Don't be dramatic," she laughed. "I needed a few things. You're the one with the job, right?" I said nothing. "You always said you'd be there for me. And it was just this once, I swear. Don't turn it into a whole thing." Just this once. Funny how just this once always finds its way into the mouths of people who make a habit of taking. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the same patch of water damage from last winter blinking back at me. I thought about the culinary program I'd looked into at the community college. I'd bookmarked it months ago, even saved up for the first semester. That money was gone now. And still, I didn't call her back. I didn't demand the money. I didn't even tell our parents what she'd done. I just kept going. The next morning, I poured black coffee into a chipped mug, buttoned up my server uniform, and walked out the door like nothing was broken. Like I wasn't. Because in this family, silence is survival, and survival is expected. I stared at the phone, heart pounding, not from fear, but from the slow, growing realization. They were never going to stop asking. That realization didn't fade the next day. It stuck with me like smoke in my clothes. Every message from my mother felt heavier. Every ring of my phone made my stomach turn. I stopped checking my balance because I already knew what it would say. The restaurant was packed that Saturday night. Live music, wine flowing, Plates clinking. A good night for tips if your heart wasn't 3 counties away. I kept my head down, moving from table to table, balancing trays and small talk. One table asked for extra breadsticks 4 times. Another tried to flirt. All I could think about was the math in my head. Rent, gas, Cala's bills, groceries, the late-night pharmacy trip I hadn't budgeted for. By 7:45, the dining room buzzed like a beehive. I'd just finished clearing a table near the back when I heard it. Her voice. That's my sister, believe it or not. I didn't have to turn around. I already knew it was Cala. She was seated with 2 people I didn't recognize. She wore a tight black dress, full makeup, and her hair in that styled wave she usually only pulled out for weddings or pity plays. The people with her laughed like she was a celebrity. I stayed behind the partition, praying someone else would take their table. No such luck. Table 15's asking for you, Jessa said, glancing at the screen, then at me. They said you're family. My heart knocked against my ribs. I walked toward the table like I was walking the plank. Cala beamed. There she is. Isn't she cute in her little apron? You guys, this is my sister Irene. She owns this place. She burst into laughter before correcting herself. Kidding. She just works here. I froze mid-step. Her voice was loud enough to catch the attention of the table behind her. My manager, Marco, glanced over. I gave a tight smile and focused on the notepad in my hand. May I take your order? I asked. Cala leaned forward, elbow on the table. You still working nights? I figured you'd have leveled up by now. One of her companions let out a surprised laugh, like they weren't sure if they were allowed to react. I mean, come on, she added, twirling her wine glass. You're really okay being everyone's servant? I couldn't do it. Some of us actually have ambitions, you know? The words didn't hit me like a punch. They cut deeper. The kind of pain that doesn't bleed, just stays under your skin, cold and permanent. I looked at her. Really looked. And then she leaned closer, pretending to fix a stray strand of her hair. Quietly, for me only. You're just a low-life waitress, Irene. That's what you'll always be. I said nothing. I didn't flinch. I walked away without taking their order. Marco was already heading my direction. You okay? He asked. I'll take my break now, I said before he could say more. In the kitchen, I sank onto a crate near the storage shelves. My apron felt like it weighed 50 pounds. I wiped my hands on my jeans, which only made them feel dirtier. My throat tightened, but I wouldn't cry. Not here. Jessa came in a minute later, holding a cup of water. Are you all right? I nodded, lying with the reflex of someone who's done it too many times. Just got dizzy for a second. She didn't press. The rest of my shift blurred. I avoided table 15. Another server picked it up. Cala didn't try to stop me when she left. No wave, no thanks. Just the sound of her heels clicking across the tile floor like nothing had happened. I left work after midnight. The air was crisp, finally cool after a hot day. I walked home. Didn't wait for the bus, didn't call a ride. I needed the silence more than I needed to sit. Her voice looped in my head. You're just a low-life waitress. It was one thing to be taken for granted behind closed doors. But this was different. I didn't cry when I got home. I didn't pour wine or call anyone to vent. I changed into pajamas, sat at the edge of my bed, and just stared at the floor. The clock ticked past 1:30 a.m. Somewhere deep in me, something cracked. Quietly, without ceremony. I couldn't keep letting her do this. And just like that, I knew. This wasn't the worst she could do. It was only the beginning. The next morning came slowly, like a bruise forming under the skin. Quiet at first, then unmistakable. I poured my coffee as usual, staring out the kitchen window at a neighbor walking their dog. It was a Sunday, I think. The kind of day you're supposed to use for rest, or brunch, or walking through a farmer's market with someone who holds your hand. Instead, I sat in silence, my phone screen lit up with unread texts from Cala. Her tone was cheerful, as if nothing had happened, as if humiliating me in front of strangers was a passing cloud we could all forget. Hey you! Want to come over later? I found that movie we used to love as kids. Not an apology, not a single word of remorse. Just more of the same, like always. 3 days later, I stopped by my parents' house to drop off a box of summer clothes they'd asked me to pull from storage. I hadn't planned to stay long. The air always felt heavier there. As I set the box down by the door, I heard voices drifting from the kitchen. Mom, soft and exasperated. Dad, low and calm. A familiar rhythm. "It's not like the last time we paid her credit card bill," my father said. "Irene never found out, and it helped Calla get through that rough patch." I froze. The box slipped slightly from my grip, hitting the floor with a quiet thud. They didn't hear it. Never found out? That rough patch had been the semester Calla went to Paris on a study break. I'd thought she'd saved for it. I'd thought she had a scholarship. I'd even mailed her a care package with my tips tucked inside a book, stupidly proud of her. But now, that had been funded by my parents, behind my back. And worse, they never told me. I left without saying anything. I didn't knock, didn't wait for them to notice. I walked out with the sound of their voices still swirling in my head, like echoes in a house that was never really mine. The next afternoon, I met Camille for lunch at a small sandwich place near her office. We hadn't seen each other in a few weeks, which was rare for us. Normally, she was my person. The one who didn't flinch when I said I was too tired to talk. The one who dropped off soup when I got sick. But something felt off. She was polite, even kind. But her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. She didn't ask much about work or my family, just talked about her new upstairs neighbor who practiced the trumpet too loudly at 10 p.m. Halfway through her salad, she put her fork down and said, "Irene, can I ask you something?" I nodded. "Did you know Calla borrowed money from me?" I blinked. "What?" She said it was just a short-term thing, emergency rent. "I figured you were helping, so she must be good for it. I sent her $400. That was 2 months ago." My mouth went dry. I hadn't known. Of course I hadn't. "She ghosted me after that," Camille continued. "Didn't respond to messages. I didn't want to bring it up, but I think she used me, and I think she used your name to do it." I wanted to say something, anything, but all that came out was, "I'm sorry." She smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was resigned. "I know it's not your fault," she said gently, "but I think I need a little space." That sentence hit harder than I expected. I nodded, even as the pit in my stomach grew. She paid for her half of the meal and stood up. "I'll text you later this month." "Maybe." I watched her leave through the front window, her purse slung casually over her shoulder, the way people walk when they're no longer carrying part of your world. That night, I sat in bed scrolling through social media. Calla had posted a story of her laughing at a rooftop bar, champagne in hand, captioned, "Brunch queens do it better." She didn't look guilty, didn't even look aware. I wondered how someone could cause so much harm and still sleep like a baby. How could she smile like that when everything she touched left someone else hurting? I closed the app, my hands were shaking, and then, without even thinking, I deleted it. All of it. Instagram, Facebook, even the messaging threads with her name. Silence flooded in. I walked to my desk, pulled out an old notebook I hadn't touched in years, and opened to a blank page. I started writing, not to vent, not to accuse, but to track, line by line, every payment, every favor, every lie, not for revenge, for clarity, for me. I didn't need apologies anymore. I needed boundaries, and this time, I was going to draw them. It started with a phone call at 10:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was folding laundry, a podcast humming in the background, when the screen lit up with an unfamiliar number. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail, but something, instinct maybe, made me swipe. "Hello?" A man's voice answered. Professional, detached. "Hi, this is Mr. Chen. I'm Calla's landlord. I just wanted to follow up on the rent. Your payment didn't go through for this month. Should I send the invoice again to your email?" I blinked. "My what?" He hesitated. Kala said you usually handle it. She gave me your number in case there were any issues. My fingers tightened around the phone. I never agreed to pay her rent, I said slowly. Please remove my number from your records. There was a pause. Oh, I see. I'll speak to Kala. I hung up without saying goodbye. My breath was shallow, my heart, not racing, boiling. It wasn't just about the money, it was the gall, the entitlement, the way she kept handing out pieces of my life like they were hers to give. I sat down on the edge of my bed, phone still in my hand, and stared at the floor like it had answers. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then I typed out the message. If you ever give my name or number to someone regarding your finances again, I'll involve the police. This isn't a joke. I'm done. I hit send. No emojis. No love you anyway. No explanation. 2 minutes later, she replied. Chill. It's just rent. You always overreact. I tossed the phone onto the couch like it had burned me. Maybe I did overreact for years. And maybe now I was finally reacting just enough. That Friday, Aunt Vivian invited me over for dinner. Her voice was warm, the kind that made you exhale without realizing you'd been holding your breath. Just us, she said. No expectations. Come hungry. I brought a small dessert I didn't bake, but pretended I had. It didn't matter. She smiled like I'd brought her gold. We ate chicken piccata with roasted potatoes and limoni greens. She poured me a glass of wine and sat across the table, eyes kind but searching. I've been meaning to say something, she began. I know your parents lean on you, a lot. I swallowed hard, nodding. She continued. It's not fair. They raised 2 daughters, but only one was ever expected to hold the roof up. My throat tightened. I looked down, blinking fast. She reached across the table, touched my hand. You don't have to keep doing it. You're allowed to say no. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. No one had ever said it so plainly. Not with love. Not with permission. Then the phone rang. It was my mother. Vivian sighed, already knowing. I picked up, only because I didn't want to lie later. Are you talking about us? Mom said, her voice cool. Vivian's always been good at stirring the pot. Mom, we're just having dinner. She cut me off. Don't forget who helped you pay your first month's rent, Irene. Don't let people fill your head with... Vivian took the phone from me, calmly, gracefully, and said, maybe if you raised both daughters equally, Irene wouldn't have to keep cleaning up your mess. She ended the call without another word. My jaw went slack. You didn't have to. I did, she said, pouring another glass, because no one else ever has. After dinner, I helped wash dishes. The silence between us was soft, not awkward. She handed me a towel and said, You're stronger than you think, but strong doesn't mean silent. I went home just before 10. The streets were quiet, headlights smearing against damp asphalt. When I reached my apartment, I didn't turn on the TV or check my phone. I sat at the kitchen table and opened the same notebook from the other night. And this time, instead of listing debts, I made a new list. Boundaries. I won't answer money requests. I won't defend someone who won't defend me. I won't explain my choices to people who only listen to judge. I won't play the villain in someone else's fantasy. I closed the notebook, leaned back, and whispered out loud, I've said yes my whole life. Maybe it's time they hear a no. And if they didn't like what came next, that was their problem, not mine. I went to bed that night with a strange stillness in my chest. No shaking hands, no lump in my throat. Just silence, the kind that fills a room after a door's been closed for good. But that peace lasted less than 36 hours. I woke up Thursday morning to a message that twisted my stomach before I even unlocked the screen. I'm sorry if I've been awful. I don't want to be here anymore. It was from Kala. No punctuation, no follow-up, just that. I shot upright, heart slamming against my ribs. The room suddenly felt cold, despite the spring sun pouring through the window. I dialed her number. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Then again. Each ring felt heavier than the last. No answer. I threw on a sweatshirt and shoes without socks, grabbed my keys, flew down the stairs, phone clutched like a lifeline. I didn't know where I was going. I just couldn't sit still. Couldn't do nothing. I drove. No destination. Just motion. I stopped at red lights without remembering how I got there. When I finally pulled over at a gas station, I called her again. Nothing. 30 minutes later, as I sat frozen in the driver's seat, my phone buzzed. Relax. I was just in a dark place. Thanks for caring, though. I stared at the screen. She knew. She knew exactly what to say to send me spiraling. And worse, she knew I'd come running. Not because I'm weak, but because I'm human. And she'd always treated my empathy like a lever she could pull anytime she needed something. I didn't text back. Instead, I drove home in silence. The only sound was the occasional creak of my tires over pavement. The weather had shifted, sunlight dulled by clouds. That evening, I folded laundry while my phone vibrated again. This time, it was my mother. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail. Irene, I don't understand how you could abandon your sister when she's clearly suffering. You used to be kind. What happened to you? An hour later, another call. This one from Dad. His voice was heavier, slower. You're not being yourself, sweetheart. That's not how we raised you. Family comes first, always. I put the phone face down on the table and sat beside it like it might explode. What do you say to people who only love the version of you that breaks herself to feed them? I tried writing it out, what I was feeling. But the words felt too polite, too filtered. So I opened my voice memo app and hit record. They don't love me. They love what I do for them, I said softly, almost afraid to hear it out loud. And now that I've stopped, they don't know what to do with me. I didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, I turned off notifications. For 48 hours, I ignored every call, every ding, every desperate emoji. And, like clockwork, the tone shifted. Kala's next message was colder. So I guess you've decided you're better than all of us now. Good to know. Then another. I shouldn't have expected anything from someone who hides behind boundaries to justify being selfish. There it was. The final trick in the guilt playbook, turning blame into a weapon. But this time, it didn't land. On Sunday morning, I sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where I'd once listed boundaries. And I added one more. I won't be manipulated by fear, guilt, or shame. I opened a new message thread. Group text. Just family. I typed slowly, carefully, without rage, without apology. Effective immediately, I am no longer financially responsible for Kala. I will not respond to future requests or third-party pressure. I need space. I need peace. I hope you'll respect that. I read it twice, then hit send. The message went out at 9:04 a.m. I set the phone down, walked to the window, and pulled open the blinds. The sky was clearing, sunlight spilling through clouds like breath after holding it too long. My hands still trembled, but my breath? Steady. What I didn't know then was how far they go to break that peace. 3 mornings passed with no calls, no texts, no knocks. I started to think maybe the silence would hold. Maybe this time they'd heard me. Then, on a quiet Thursday afternoon, while I was walking home from a shift at the cafe, Jessa waved at me from across the street. She looked unusually hesitant, almost sheepish. Hey, she called out as we neared the corner. Weird question, but wasn't that vintage watch yours, the silver one? I swear I saw it on Resell Loop yesterday. My steps slowed. What do you mean? She pulled out her phone, scrolled, then turned the screen toward me. There it was. The vintage silver timepiece I'd spent 4 months saving for. The one I gave Kala on her birthday. The one she cried over, swore she'd keep forever. The tiny inscription still visible in the photo. For every second you dreamed out loud. Love, Irene. The ad was simple. No sentiment, no story. Used but elegant. $225 OBO. My stomach dropped. The world didn't tilt. It tightened. I didn't say anything to Jessa, just thanked her and walked away. I wasn't even mad, not in the hot, yelling way. It was colder than that. She hadn't just taken money. She sold the only thing I gave her from the deepest part of me. She didn't sell the watch. She sold my love. That night, it rained in Sacramento. The soft kind that only hits your windows, not your roof. I made a simple dinner, nothing fancy. Ate alone. Was halfway through washing the dishes when I heard it. Banging. 3 sharp knocks on the front door. Then another 2, faster. I froze. Dish still in hand. I walked quietly toward the peephole. It was Calla. She stood in a white coat, makeup smeared just enough to suggest chaos, but not enough to hide the designer dress beneath it. "Irene!" she shouted. "Open the door!" I didn't move. "I know you're home. I saw your light. Come on!" I slipped the chain lock across and opened the door just a few inches. "What do you want?" I asked. Her eyes flared. "I need a place to crash, just for a couple nights. I got kicked out." My voice stayed low. "You still have that coat and a Louis Vuitton bag. God, is this about appearances now? You think I'm not struggling just because I don't look like it?" I didn't answer. She pressed harder. "You need to let me in. You're my sister. I have nowhere else." I shook my head. "You made this bed, Calla. Don't act shocked, it's cold." Her voice sharpened. "You're seriously going to turn me away? You're so heartless. What kind of sister does that?" I leaned forward just enough for her to hear me clearly. The kind who finally learned how to survive. Then I closed the door. Her voice rose on the other side, something about abandonment, betrayal. But it was muffled now, like yelling from inside a dream. I sat down on the couch. My hands trembled. But they didn't move toward the door. I didn't chase, didn't explain. Later that night, the texts started. "You'll regret this. You're acting like you're better than everyone. Don't forget who helped you when you were nothing." That one hit a nerve. But not for the reason she thought. Because I wasn't nothing I'd never been. I just wasn't hers to use anymore. I typed one line, no punctuation. "I've never been nothing, just invisible to you." Then I blocked the number. I didn't sleep much, but I didn't cry either. In the morning, I changed the locks. The guy from the hardware store did it quickly. No questions. $58, 20 minutes, and a small shake of his head when I handed him the old chain lock. When he left, I stood in the doorway and looked around. The apartment was quiet, my space, my rules. "This place is small," I said aloud, "but it's mine." I walked to the window, opened it, and let the breeze move through the room. "For the first time," I whispered, "it's safe." But I underestimated how far someone will go when they realize they've lost control. The first ping came during my lunch break at the restaurant. I was sitting in the back office, biting into a cold sandwich, when Jessa burst in, phone in hand. "Have you seen this?" she asked, eyes wide. I wiped my hands on a napkin. "Seen what?" She handed me the phone without another word. The screen lit up with an anonymous Instagram post. "Imagine being abandoned by your own sister while struggling with depression. I had to sleep in my car while she blocked my number. I still love her, but she made me feel like nothing." Below the text was a blurred photo of what looked like the front steps of my apartment building. The caption ended with a heart emoji. I scrolled. Hundreds of likes, dozens of comments. "You're so brave." "She'll regret it one day. Blood doesn't mean anything to some people. Praying for you, whoever you are." But I knew who it was. No name, no handle to trace. But I knew. Calla. Jessa hovered. I didn't want to assume, but it kind of sounded personal. I nodded, feeling a cold flush spread through my chest. "It is." Back out on the floor, the shift moved like molasses. One customer I used to serve every Thursday wouldn't meet my eyes. Another, a woman who always asked for me, requested someone else. Whispers trailed behind me, like steam rising off a hot plate. And when I finally checked my phone again at closing, the DMS had started rolling in. You could have saved her life. You're a monster. Some people don't deserve family. I didn't reply. To anyone. I went home that night with my jaw clenched so tight, my teeth ached. I sat at my kitchen table, stared at the dim light flickering through the blinds, and tried to steady my hands. What did I expect? That Calla would give up quietly? That setting boundaries would be enough? She didn't want distance. She wanted war. But this time, I wasn't going to crawl into silence. I opened my notes app and wrote, "There's a difference between helping and being used. I chose to live. And no one gets to shame me for that." I read it 3 times. No edits, no filter. Then I posted it, on my own page, with my own name, and let the world read it how they wanted. The first comments trickled in. A few vague subtweets from cousins I hadn't heard from in months. But then something shifted. Aunt Vivian replied, "You did the right thing. Don't let their noise drown your truth." Another message came from Camille. I saw the post. I'm proud of you, and I'm still here. My shoulders loosened, just a little. That night, the wind picked up again outside. Rain tapping faintly at the window, like it was trying to be gentle with me for once. I was mid-dishwashing when my phone lit up again. Calla. So now you want a public pity war? I stared at the screen, took a breath, typed back. You fired the first shot. I just stopped running. I didn't wait for a reply. I powered off my phone, wiped my hands dry, and leaned against the counter. No more hiding, no more guilt blankets wrapped in apology. Because if this was war, I was finally ready to win on my terms. Winning, it turned out, didn't come with applause. It came with silence. After my post, the social storm quieted, but not in a way that felt victorious. Just still. Like everyone had taken a collective breath and chosen not to exhale around me. A few friends didn't reply to my texts anymore. Camille canceled our usual brunch, no explanation. Even my manager, who used to greet me every shift with a smile and a joke, cut my hours without a word. It's just scheduling, she said, but I saw the way she looked at me now, like I carried something contagious. It was Calla's real gift, not the drama, not the insults, the aftermath, the erosion. She'd always been good at leaving scars where no one could see them. I spent most of that week inside. Curtains drawn halfway, meals kept simple, phone notifications off. But the quiet? It wasn't crushing this time, it was preparation. Then came Aunt Vivian's call on Saturday morning. We're doing a small cookout, family only, she said, her voice light. You don't have to come, but you deserve to show your face. I hesitated. People will stare, I said. She didn't argue. Then stare back. You don't hide from shame you didn't earn. Sunday afternoon came faster than expected. I put on a soft sweater, jeans that fit just right, and pulled my hair into a low knot. Nothing fancy, just clean and confident. The house was already buzzing when I arrived. Lawn chairs dotted the grass, smoke curled from the grill. Laughter floated over from the porch, but it quieted as I stepped into view. I spotted her immediately. Calla, perched on the patio edge like a queen on a throne nobody offered. Legs crossed, drink in hand. Her eyes found me. Cold, unblinking. My mother stood beside her, jaw tight. My father? Sipping lemonade, avoiding eye contact like it might bite him. I nodded at Aunt Vivian, who smiled softly. Brave, I thought. Her, not me. Then it happened. Calla's voice rang out, just loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Even now, she's the victim. She always wanted people to pity her. The words hung in the air like wet laundry, heavy and humiliating. I didn't flinch. I walked toward her, each step measured, the grass crunching under my shoes like it knew something sacred was ending. When I reached her, I didn't raise my voice, didn't point a finger. I just looked at her and said, no. I just wanted to stop bleeding for someone who wouldn't even say thank you. The yard stilled. A cousin near the grill clapped, once, twice, then stopped. No one else moved. I turned to Miriam, who stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. Then to Ronald, who shifted his weight and looked past me. I won't keep giving you a daughter to sacrifice, I said quietly. Not anymore. And I walked away, back to my car, back to my life. No one called after me. No one followed. The sun was lower when I got home, streaking amber across the floorboards. I kicked off my shoes, poured a glass of water, and sat on the couch. My phone sat silent. No buzzing, no guilt trip voicemails, no please come back from anyone, just me. And in that space, for the first time in years, I felt something like peace. It didn't come wrapped in a happy ending, but it felt earned. Not all battles end with forgiveness. Some end with freedom. The first few days afterward felt like walking barefoot on new hardwood, quiet, unfamiliar, but solid. I didn't hear from my parents. Not once. No checking in, no guilt-laced prayers or scripture quotes. The air around me had thinned out, and strangely, I could breathe better in it. One night, about a month after the cookout, I sat at my little two-person table, eating reheated soup and a slice of buttered toast. The apartment hummed with the dull purr of the fridge. Outside, someone was walking their dog, its collar tags jingling faintly through the window. No one had texted me all day. I smiled. At first, the silence had felt like punishment. Now it sounded like music. The next morning, I rode the city bus to the community college I'd once only daydreamed about. It was gray outside, the kind of weather that made Sacramento look soft around the edges. I stepped into the student services office and waited behind a young man with earbuds in and a mother wrangling a toddler. When it was my turn, the woman at the desk smiled politely. Program? Culinary arts, I said. Night or weekend courses? Night, I replied, then added, I work full-time. She nodded, typing something. Do you have an emergency contact? I hesitated. There was a time I would have said Calla without thinking, or my parents, even after everything. But now? No one, I said gently. Just me. She didn't flinch, just wrote it down. I paid the deposit with the same card Calla used to drain for shopping trips. It felt poetic. When I left the building, my receipt tucked into my coat pocket, I looked up at the sky. It wasn't sunny, it wasn't raining, just somewhere in between. That night, as I settled into bed with a book, my phone buzzed. One notification, a long message. From Calla. It started with, I was awful, I know that now. She wrote about missing me, about going through a lot, about maybe meeting someday, just to talk. I read it once, then again, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger or pity, just space between us. I didn't reply. I hovered over the delete button, then pressed it. Healing, I'd come to learn, isn't always a homecoming. Sometimes it's a quiet goodbye. The next morning, I opened my kitchen window. A cool breeze drifted in, bringing with it a faint smell of wet pavement and cut grass. I pulled out my old, dog-eared cookbook, the one I'd marked with sticky notes years ago, and tucked away, thinking it was a someday thing. I flipped to a page with a simple chicken and rosemary dish. Comfort food. My kind. I gathered the ingredients, washed my hands, lit the burner. As the oil hissed softly in the pan, I whispered, This time, I cook for me. And I meant it. I didn't win, I just stopped losing. And for once, that was enough. You know, for a long time, I thought love meant saying yes. That loyalty was proven by how much of yourself you were willing to lose for someone else. But I've learned something. Something I wish I'd known sooner. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop. Stop enabling. Stop explaining. Stop shrinking to fit inside someone else's expectations. I didn't walk away because I hated them. I walked away because I finally chose me. If you're watching this and you've been carrying more than your share for too long, maybe it's time to ask yourself, at what cost? Who's taking your energy while calling it love? And what would it look like to protect your peace, even if it means being misunderstood? You don't have to wait for rock bottom to reclaim your life. Sometimes healing doesn't come from reconciliation, it comes from release. And now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family or walk away entirely? What part of this story hit home for you the most? Drop a 1 in the comments if this story touched your heart, or just let me know where you're watching from. And hey, if this didn't speak to you, that's okay too. Tell me why. I'd love to hear your story too. And if you want more real stories like this, raw, honest, and human, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss the next chapter. Thanks for being here. Until next time.